The African woman everyone called Barren just brought a baby to her own divorce hearing, and you could hear a pin drop in that conference room. Her Korean Mafia boss husband had spent years taunting her, calling her worthless, all while she built his entire empire from the ground up when he couldn't even walk. Now he's about to find out exactly how much he underestimated her. Okay, so, if this intro already has you invested, hit that like button and subscribe real quick. Comment and tell me if you saw this coming, because honestly the twists keep coming. The conference room doors swung open and everyone froze. Daniela walked in holding a baby carrier, her head high despite the whispers that started immediately. The lawyer looked up from his papers, confused. Dongwoo's lawyer straightened in his chair. And Dongwoo himself, sitting there in his expensive suit like he owned the world, went completely still. "You're late," he said, voice cold as winter in Seoul. "Sign the papers so we can both move on with our lives." Daniela set the carrier down gently on the polished table. The baby inside stirred, made a soft sound. She didn't look at Dongwoo yet, just carefully adjusted the blanket around her daughter. Their daughter. Though he didn't know that part yet. "I'm not signing anything," she said quietly. Dongwoo laughed, but it wasn't a real laugh. More like a bark. "Of course you are. You think you have a choice? After everything, after being unable to give me even one child in 4 years of marriage." His lawyer shifted uncomfortably. Daniela's lawyer, Mrs. Park, a sharp woman she'd hired 3 weeks ago, smiled slightly. Just a tiny curve of her lips. "Mr. Jang," Mrs. Yang said, opening her briefcase. "Before we proceed, my client has some evidence she'd like to present." "Evidence?" Dongwoo's eyes narrowed. "Evidence of what?" "Her inadequacy. We all know. Evidence of your affair with her stepsister, Davina." Mrs. Yang slid a folder across the table. "Hotel receipts. Text messages. Photos. Shall I continue?" The color drained from Dongwoo's face so fast Daniela almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then she remembered all those nights he'd come home late, smelling like Davina's perfume. All those cruel words about how she was broken, useless, not a real woman because she couldn't conceive. Turns out she wasn't the problem at all. You can't. Dongwoo grabbed the folder, flipped it open. His hands shook slightly. "Good. And before you try to deny the baby," Daniela said, finally meeting his eyes, "she's yours, Dongwoo. Remember 9 months ago? You came home drunk after that business meeting. You could barely stand up, but somehow you found your way to my room for the first time in a year." She watched him process this, watched the memory surface behind his eyes. He'd been so drunk he probably thought it was a dream. But it had been real. Very real. And now here was the proof, sleeping peacefully in a carrier on the divorce table. "No," he whispered. "That's not, you're lying. DNA test is ready whenever you want it." Mrs. Yang pulled out another document. "But more importantly, Mr. Jang, let's talk about the company. The one my client helped you build when you were, what was the term?" Yes, crippled." Daniela remembered those days too well. 3 years ago, Dongwoo had been in a car accident. Both legs broken, told he might never walk properly again. His business partners had scattered like rats. But Daniela had stayed. She'd learned everything about his company. Imports, exports, the complicated network of connections that made up his business empire. She'd gone to meetings in his place, made decisions, kept everything running while he recovered in their bedroom, bitter and angry at the world. She'd rebuilt him, piece by piece. And this was her thank you. "The company is mine," Dongwoo said, but his voice cracked slightly. "Actually," Mrs. Yang smiled wider now. "According to Korean law and the documents we've obtained, your wife is entitled to quite a significant portion, especially considering her contributions during your incapacitation. We have testimony from over 40 employees about her role. Emails. Contracts she negotiated and signed. She wasn't just your wife, Mr. Jang. She was your partner." Dongwoo stood up so fast his chair fell backward. "You planned this. All this time. All this time I loved you," Daniela said softly. The baby started crying then, maybe sensing the tension in the room. Daniela picked her up, held her close. "I loved you when everyone else left. I loved you through the pain and the anger and the rehabilitation. I learned your business inside and out because I wanted to help you. And you repaid me by sleeping with my stepsister and calling me barren." "She came on to me," Dongwoo said, grasping at straws. Davina, it wasn't my fault. It never is, right? Daniela bounced the baby gently, the way she'd learned from the nurses at the hospital. Nothing is ever your fault, Dongwoo. Not the affair. Not the cruel words. Not abandoning me while I was pregnant and didn't even know it yet. His lawyer was whispering urgently in his ear now, probably telling him he was screwed. Which he was. Daniela had spent 3 months preparing for this moment. 3 months discovering the truth, gathering evidence, consulting lawyers, understanding exactly what she was entitled to. 3 months of crying herself to sleep while her belly grew and her heart broke. But she was done crying now. Here's what's going to happen, Mrs. Young said, taking control of the room like the professional she was. Ms. Daniela gets 50% of the company's assets. Full custody of the child. The house in Gangnam, the one SHE decorated and maintained. And a formal apology. I'm not apologizing for anything. Dongwoo slammed his hand on the table. The baby cried harder. She's trying to ruin me. Can't you see? This is all a setup. A setup. Daniela's voice rose despite herself. She took a breath, calmed down. I didn't set you up, Dongwoo. You did this to yourself. Every choice was yours. I just stopped pretending I didn't see them. The door opened again. Davina walked in, probably thinking she was here to support Dongwoo. She stopped when she saw Daniela holding the baby. Her face went pale. What is this? She asked. This is your niece, Daniela said calmly. Her name is Lorato. Means love. Because even after everything I wanted to remember what love felt like before it turned into this. Davina looked at Dongwoo. He looked at the floor. And just like that, Davina understood. Her sister, had given him the one thing she'd always thrown in Daniela's face. A child. You told me she was infertile, Davina said to Dongwoo. You said the doctors confirmed it. I never said that, Daniela corrected. The doctors said it was unlikely. Difficult maybe. But not impossible. Dongwoo just heard what he wanted to hear so he'd have an excuse to treat me like garbage. Davina, not now, Dongwoo hissed. But Davina wasn't done. You said once the divorce was final we'd get married. You promised me the house, the company, everything. You said she had nothing was nothing. Oh, this is beautiful, Mrs. Young murmured, taking notes. Daniela almost laughed. Almost. Because it was kind of funny watching them turn on each other. Watching the pretty lies crumble. But mostly she just felt tired. Tired and ready to start over. I'm leaving, she announced. Mrs. Young will handle the rest of the paperwork. Dongwoo, you can see Lorato whenever you want. Supervised visits, of course. I won't keep her from her father, even if her father is a cheating piece of work who called her mother barren for 4 years straight. She gathered the baby carrier, her purse. Headed for the door. Daniela, wait. She didn't wait. She walked out of that conference room with her head high and her daughter in her arms, and she didn't look back. Not once. Behind her she heard Davina and Dongwoo start arguing. Heard his lawyer trying to calm him down. Heard Mrs. Park's professional voice cutting through the chaos. But none of it mattered anymore. The elevator doors closed and Daniela finally let out the breath she'd been holding. Lorato looked up at her with those big dark eyes. Dongwoo's eyes, unfortunately, but somehow softer. Kinder. Just you and me now, Daniela whispered. We're going to be okay. The elevator descended, and with each floor that passed, Daniela felt lighter. Freer. Like she'd been carrying a weight for 4 years and finally got permission to set it down. Her phone buzzed. A message from Mrs. Park. He wants to negotiate. Don't respond. Let him sweat. Daniela smiled. Tucked the phone away. Let Dongwoo sweat indeed. Outside, Seoul was bright and busy and completely indifferent to her personal drama. People rushed past on their way to wherever. Cars honked. Street vendors called out their prices. Normal life continuing like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. Daniela hailed a taxi, carefully secured Lorato's carrier in the back seat. Gave the driver her mother's address. She'd been staying there since she found out about the affair. Her mother, who'd flown in from Botswana the moment Daniela called crying, had been waiting for this day. Well? Her mother asked the moment Daniela walked through the door. Did you do it? I did it. Daniela set the carrier down, collapsed onto the couch. Mama, I really did it. Her mother sat beside her, pulled her close. I'm proud of you, little one. So very proud. And finally, Daniela let herself cry. Not sad tears this time though. These were different. These were relief and anger and grief and hope all mixed together, spilling out after being held back for so long. He looked so shocked, she said between sobs. Like he couldn't believe I'd actually fight back. Men like him never do, her mother said, stroking her hair. They think kindness is weakness. They mistake patience for stupidity. And then they're surprised when the woman they underestimated turns out to be smarter than them all along. Lorato started fussing. Daniela wiped her eyes, went to make a bottle. Her mother followed, watching her with that careful maternal concern. What happens now? Her mother asked. Now. Daniela tested the formula temperature on her wrist. Now we wait. Mrs. Yang says the legal stuff will take a few weeks, maybe months. But I'm not worried. We have everything we need. Evidence, testimony, documentation. He can fight it if he wants, but he'll lose. And the company? I don't know yet. Daniela settled into the rocking chair, started feeding Lorato. Part of me wants to take my share and walk away. Start fresh somewhere new. But another part. Mama, I built that company. Or at least half of it. Those late nights studying import regulations. Learning Mandarin so I could negotiate with suppliers directly. Redesigning the whole logistics system. That was me. Then don't walk away, her mother said firmly. Take what's yours. Make him watch while you succeed. Daniela smiled at that. Her mother had always been fierce. It's where she got her own strength from, probably. The ability to keep going even when everything felt impossible. 3 days later, Dongwu showed up at her mother's house. Daniela was changing Lorato's diaper when the doorbell rang. Her mother answered, came back looking annoyed. He's here, she said. Wants to talk to you. Tell him to go through Mrs. Park. I did. He says it's not about the divorce. Says it's personal. Everything was personal with Dongwu. But Daniela was curious despite herself. She finished with Lorato, washed her hands, went to the door. He looked terrible. Eyes red, hair messy, clothes wrinkled. Not his usual polished self. What do you want? She asked, arms crossed. Can I come in? No. He flinched. Good. Let him feel uncomfortable for once. I made a mistake, he said quietly. With Davina. With everything. I was angry after the accident and I took it out on you and I'm sorry. You're sorry, Daniela repeated flatly. That's nice. Is that all? I want to try again. For the baby. For us. We can make this work, Daniela. I know we can. She stared at him. Tried to find any trace of the man she'd fallen in love with 5 years ago. That charming guy who'd swept her off her feet at a business conference in Cape Town. Who'd learned basics at Swana to impress her parents. Who'd promised her the world. He was gone. Or maybe he'd never existed in the first place. No, she said simply. No. Just like that. You won't even consider. I considered it for 4 years, Dong. 4 years of considering whether maybe tomorrow you'd be kinder. Whether maybe next week you'd remember why you married me. Whether maybe someday you'd stop comparing me to every other woman and find me enough just as I was. I'm done considering. But the baby has a father who can visit her on weekends. Who can pay child support and show up for birthdays and do all the things fathers do when they're not actually in love with the mother. That's what you get. That's all you get. He reached for her hand. She stepped back. Please, Daniela. I'm begging you. You know what's funny? He felt surprisingly calm. You never begged me to stay. Never begged me to forgive you when I found Davina's earring in your car. Never begged for anything until there were consequences. So forgive me if your begging doesn't move me much. She closed the door in his face. Locked it. Leaned against it for a moment, heart pounding. Her mother appeared with a cup of tea. That man has audacity, I'll give him that. He thinks I'll break, Daniela said, accepting the tea gratefully. He thinks eventually I'll remember how much I loved him and take him back. Will you? No, Mama. Not ever. And she meant it. The weeks that followed were strange. Daniela settled into a rhythm. Feeding Lorato, changing diapers, learning how to function on 3 hours of sleep. Her mother helped, but eventually she had to return to Botswana. Daniela found herself alone in the small apartment she'd rented in Itaewon, just her and Lorato figuring things out together. Mrs. Yang called regularly with updates. The company assets were being evaluated. Dongwu was fighting the 50% split naturally. His lawyers argued Daniela had only been acting as his assistant, not a true business partner. Her lawyers countered with mountains of evidence proving otherwise. "It'll go to court probably," Mrs. Young said during one of their meetings. Lorato was asleep in her stroller, making those tiny snuffling sounds babies make. "But we'll win. I've seen the documentation. You basically ran that company for 18 months while he recovered." "I know," Daniela said. "I was there. The question is, what do you want to do with your share once you get it? Sell it back to him? Keep it? Become an active partner?" Daniela had thought about this constantly. The easy thing would be taking the money and running. Starting over somewhere Dongwoo couldn't find her. But something in her resisted that idea. "I want to keep it," she said slowly. "I want to be there. At the office. Making decisions. I want him to see me every day and remember that I'm not the weak little wife he thought I was." Mrs. Young smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that. Because between you and me, that company needs you more than it needs him. His instincts are good but his execution is sloppy. You're the one who actually understands logistics and supply chain management. Without you he's been making mistakes." "What kind of mistakes?" "Lost shipments. Angry clients. The Singapore deal fell through last week because he insulted the CEO's wife at a dinner party. Your husband, sorry soon ex-husband, is brilliant at making money but terrible at keeping it." This didn't surprise Daniela. Dongwoo had always been impulsive, reactive. She'd been the one smoothing things over, sending apology gifts, rebuilding burned bridges. "When can I start?" she asked. "Once the court ruling comes through. Probably 2 months. In the meantime, maybe attend some board meetings as an observer? Get familiar with everything again. Show them you're serious." Daniela agreed. Started researching everything she'd missed in the past year. Market trends, competitor moves, new regulations. At night while Lorato slept she'd sit with her laptop and study. Preparing for war in a way that didn't involve weapons, just knowledge and determination. Dongwoo tried calling several times. She never answered. He sent gifts. Flowers, jewelry, a ridiculously expensive baby stroller. She donated it all to a women's shelter. Let him waste his money if he wanted. She wasn't for sale anymore. Her stepsister Davina tried reaching out too. Long apologetic messages about how she'd made a mistake, how Dongwoo had pursued her, how she never meant to hurt anyone. Daniela blocked her number. Some betrayals were too deep to forgive, and sleeping with your sister's husband definitely qualified. The first board meeting was terrifying. Daniela wore her best suit, black, professional, intimidating. Hired a babysitter for Lorato, though leaving her daughter made her chest tight with anxiety. Showed up at the Jiang Import-Export offices 15 minutes early. The receptionist, Mina, recognized her immediately. "Mrs. Jiang." "Miss Daniela. We heard you were coming. Conference room B." Everyone stared as she walked through the office. Some people smiled. Others looked nervous. Probably worried about what her presence meant for their jobs. Daniela kept her expression neutral, confident. "Fake it until you make it," her mother always said. Conference room B was full. Dongwoo sat at the head of the table naturally. He looked up when she entered and something flashed across his face. Surprise maybe. Or fear. "Daniela," he said carefully. "You didn't have to come." "Actually, I did." She took the empty seat directly across from him. Made herself comfortable. Mrs. Young filed the paperwork. "I'm here as a provisional board member pending the court's decision. This is highly irregular." "So is sleeping with your wife's sister," she said pleasantly. "But here we are." Someone coughed. Someone else tried to hide a smile. Dongwoo's face went red but he couldn't argue. Not without looking even worse. The meeting proceeded awkwardly. They discussed quarterly earnings, down 12%, which wasn't great. Supply chain issues with their Taiwanese manufacturers. A potential new partnership with a company in Kenya. "Kenya?" Daniela spoke up. "What kind of partnership?" The CFO, Mr. Nam, adjusted his glasses. "Agricultural exports. Coffee, tea, fresh flowers. They have excellent production but need help with distribution." "What are the terms?" "We take 30% of profits in exchange for handling logistics and international sales." Daniela frowned. "That's steep. What's their counteroffer?" Mr. Nam looked at Dongwoo, who looked annoyed. "They haven't made one yet. We sent our proposal last week. Send me their contact information, Daniela said. Let me talk to them. I bet we can get to 20% and still make everyone happy. This isn't your place to. Actually it is, she interrupted Dongwoo. Or it will be soon enough. And even if it wasn't, I grew up in southern Africa. I understand the business culture there better than anyone in this room. Unless you've suddenly become an expert on East African commerce while I was gone. Silence. Dongwoo's jaw clenched but he had no good response. Fine, he bit out. Talk to them. But don't make promises we can't keep. The meeting ended shortly after. People filed out, some of them stopping to welcome Daniela back. Mr. Nam lingered, looking relieved. Between you and me, he said quietly, we need you here. Things have been chaotic lately. Good to have someone with sense making decisions again. Felt good being valued. Being seen. For 4 years she'd been invisible in her own marriage. Now she was becoming visible again, piece by piece. Dongwoo caught her in the hallway. Can we talk? Privately. We are talking, she said, not stopping. Daniela, please. Just 5 minutes. She sighed. Checked her watch. The babysitter had Lorato for another hour. Fine. 5 minutes. They went to his office. The office she'd practically lived in during his recovery. It looked different now. Messy. Papers everywhere. Half-empty coffee cups. No one to clean up after him anymore. This needs to stop, he said once the door closed. What needs to stop? This revenge thing. Coming to meetings, undermining me in front of the board. You're making me look bad. Daniela laughed. Actually laughed. I'm making you look bad? Dongwoo, you did that yourself. I'm just existing. Doing my job. If that makes you uncomfortable, well, maybe you shouldn't have cheated on me with my sister. How many times do I have to apologize? You haven't apologized, she pointed out. Not really. You've said sorry because you got caught. Because there are consequences. But you're not actually sorry for hurting me. You're just sorry it blew up in your face. He ran his hands through his hair, frustrated. What do you want from me? You want me to grovel? Beg? I'll do it. I'll do whatever you want. Just stop punishing me. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself and our daughter. There's a difference. Our daughter, he repeated. You keep saying that but you won't let me see her. It's been a month, Daniela. A month. I have rights. You have supervised visits starting next week. Mrs. Yang sent you the schedule. Every Saturday afternoon, 3 hours at the family center. You can see Lorato all you want under those conditions. That's not enough. I want to be her father. Really be her father. Something in his voice made Daniela pause. Look at him, really look. He seemed genuinely upset. Not angry upset like usual, but sad upset. Lost. Then be her father, she said softly. Show up on Saturdays. Be consistent. Don't miss visits. Don't make promises you can't keep. Prove you're serious about this and maybe eventually we can talk about more flexible arrangements. But right now I don't trust you, Dongwoo. And I won't risk my daughter's well-being on your word alone. He nodded slowly. Sank into his desk chair like someone had cut his strings. I messed up so badly. Yes, you did. Can we ever? Do you think we could ever fix this? Daniela considered lying, saying maybe someday just to give him hope. But she'd spent 4 years living in false hope. She was done with that. No, she said. I don't think so. Too much has happened. Too many cruel words. Too much betrayal. Even if I wanted to forgive you, which I don't, I could never forget. And I don't want to spend the rest of my life remembering. His eyes were wet. Chilly wet. She'd never seen Dongwoo cry before. Your 5 minutes are up, she said gently. I have to get back to Lorato. She left him there in his messy office, surrounded by the empire they'd built together. The empire she was about to take half of. Outside, Seoul was preparing for evening. Streetlights flickering on. People heading home from work. Daniela stopped at a park, sat on a bench, called the babysitter to say she'd be 30 minutes late. She needed a moment to breathe. To process. Seeing Dongwoo crack like that had been unexpected. Part of her felt sorry for him. But mostly she just felt tired of carrying his emotions on top of her own. Her phone rang. Unknown number. She almost didn't answer but something made her pick up. Miss Daniela? This is Lee Yong from Nairobi Exports. I got your contact information from Mr. Nam. He said you wanted to discuss the partnership proposal. Daniela sat up straighter. Yes, absolutely. Thank you for calling. Can we schedule a video meeting sometime this week? They talked for 20 minutes. Lee was sharp, knowledgeable, and surprisingly funny. They agreed to meet virtually on Thursday morning, evening his time. When they hung up, Daniela felt energized in a way she hadn't in months. This was what she'd been missing. Purpose. Something beyond diapers and heartbreak and lawyers. She went home to Lorato, paid the babysitter, spent the evening singing lullabies in Setswana. Her daughter didn't understand the words yet but seemed to like the rhythm. They'd be okay, the two of them. More than okay. They'd be good. Thursday's meeting with Lee went better than expected. They negotiated for 2 hours, going back and forth on percentages and logistics and timelines. In the end, they agreed on 22%, higher than Daniela wanted but lower than the original proposal. Everyone walked away satisfied. You're good at this, Lee said before they disconnected. Where did you learn to negotiate like that? Necessity, Daniela said with a smile. And a really stubborn personality. Well, I look forward to working with you. Assuming your company agrees to the terms. They will. She was confident about that. The deal was solid and they needed the win. She presented it at the next board meeting. Dongwoo looked skeptical but couldn't find fault with her work. The board voted unanimously to proceed. Mr. Nam actually clapped. See, he said afterward. This is what I was talking about. We need this energy. This competence. Word spread quickly. The woman who divorced the boss was back and making moves. Some people resented it, loyalists who saw Daniela as a threat. But most seemed cautiously optimistic. They'd worked with her before and knew what she was capable of. Davina showed up at Daniela's apartment one evening. Just knocked on the door like she had any right to be there. Go away, Daniela said through the intercom. Please, Daniela. I need to talk to you. It's important. Nothing you have to say is important to me. It's about Dongwoo. Daniela hesitated. Hated herself for hesitating but opened the door anyway. Davina looked awful, thin, tired, makeup not quite hiding the circles under her eyes. You have 3 minutes, Daniela said, not inviting her in. He's using me, Davina blurted out. Dongwoo. He said once you were gone he'd marry me, but now he's saying he made a mistake. That he wants you back. And I'm stuck. I left my job for him. Burned bridges with our family. And now I have nothing. Daniela felt absolutely zero sympathy. That sounds like a personal problem. You have to understand, he pursued me. He said you two were already over. That you hadn't touched each other in a year. We hadn't, Daniela interrupted. Because he stopped coming to my bed. Because he decided I wasn't good enough. But I never stopped being his wife, Davina. I never stopped honoring my vows. That was a choice you made. I know. And I'm sorry. I really am. No, you're not. You're sorry it didn't work out the way you wanted. There's a difference. Davina's face crumpled. I loved him. So did I, Daniela said quietly. And you knew that. You saw what he put me through and you decided your feelings mattered more than our sisterhood. So no, I don't have sympathy for you. And I don't forgive you. Find your own way out of this mess. She closed the door. Locked it. Leaned against it with her heart racing. Inside, Lorato started crying. Perfect timing as always. Daniela went to her daughter, picked her up, started the familiar ritual of feeding and burping and soothing. Davina knocked a few more times but eventually gave up and left. Just us against the world, little one, Daniela whispered into Lorato's soft hair. And that's enough. The court date arrived 6 weeks after that initial divorce meeting. Daniela dressed carefully. Navy suit, minimal jewelry, hair pulled back. Professional. Unshakable. Mrs. Young met her outside the courthouse. Ready? Her lawyer asked. Ready. The hearing took 3 hours. Lawyers on both sides presented evidence, made arguments, cross-examined witnesses. Daniela testified about her contributions to the company. The late nights, the client meetings, the strategic decisions. Employees testified about her leadership during Dongwoo's recovery. Dongwoo's lawyers tried to paint her as simply supportive rather than integral. Tried to minimize her role. But the evidence was overwhelming. Emails proving she'd negotiated contracts. Financial records showing her signature on major deals. Testimony from the CFO that she'd essentially been acting CO for 18 months. The judge listened carefully, took notes, asked clarifying questions. Finally called for a recess to consider the evidence. They waited in the hallway. Daniela's mother had flown back in for the hearing and sat beside her, holding her hand. Dongwoo paced at the far end of the hall, his lawyers speaking to him in urgent whispers. "Whatever happens," her mother said, "I'm proud of you. What if I lose?" "You won't. But even if you did, you've already won the important parts. Your dignity, your daughter, your self-respect. The rest is just money." Easy to say when you weren't facing potential financial ruin, but Daniela appreciated the sentiment anyway. The judge called them back in. Everyone stood. After careful consideration of the evidence presented, the judge began. This court finds that Ms. Daniela Masiko made substantial and integral contributions to Jiang Import-Export during a critical period of the company's operation. Therefore, she is entitled to 40% of the company's current value, to be paid out over 18 months or transferred as equity shares at her discretion. 40%. Not the 50 they'd asked for, but still substantial. Still huge. Additionally, the judge continued, Ms. Masiko is awarded full custody of the minor child, Larato Jiang, with supervised visitation rights for the father. Child support payments will be determined by the amounts outlined in Schedule B. Court costs will be split equally between both parties. The gavel came down. It was over. Mrs. Yang was grinning. 40% is incredible. We can work with this. Daniela felt numb. Like she was floating slightly above her body, watching everything happen to someone else. Her mother hugged her tight. Other people were talking, but their voices seemed distant. Dongwoo caught her as they were leaving. "Congratulations," he said bitterly. "You got what you wanted." "I wanted a husband who loved me," she said. "I got a business settlement instead. Trust me, it wasn't my first choice." He opened his mouth, closed it. Seemed to really hear her for the first time. "I'll send the papers about visitation," Mrs. Yang said, steering Daniela away. "Come on. Let's get you home." Home. Her small apartment in Itaewon with her daughter and her new life. Not the palatial house in Gangnam she'd shared with Dongwoo, but home nonetheless. So she just walked out of that courtroom with 40% of his empire. But wait, you think that's where this story ends? Because her cheating ex-husband is about to realize that losing half his company is just the beginning of his problems. And her stepsister, who thought she'd won by stealing her man. Well, let's just say karma has a very specific plan for both of them. Listen, go ahead and hit that like button right now, because what comes next is absolutely wild. Drop a comment telling me whether he deserves forgiveness or if she should keep destroying him. I need to know what you're thinking. That night, Daniela treated herself to expensive takeout and cheap wine. Put Larato to bed early. Sat on her balcony watching Seoul's lights and trying to process what had just happened. She owned 40% of a multi-million-dollar company. She was a mother. She was divorced. She was free. The last one was the strangest. Freedom felt lighter than she'd expected. Less dramatic. Quiet. Peaceful. Her phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number. "It's Dongwoo. Please don't block me. I need to say something." She should block him. Should delete it immediately. But curiosity got the better of her. "What?" she typed back. "Can I come over? Not to fight. Not to argue. Just to talk." "No. Please, Daniela. 30 minutes. That's all I'm asking." She stared at her phone. Thought about it. Probably shouldn't, but maybe closure wasn't the worst idea. Fine. 30 minutes. Not a second more. He arrived 20 minutes later, looking nervous. She let him in but didn't offer him anything. Just stood in the living room with her arms crossed, waiting. "Thank you," he said, "for agreeing to see me." Clock's ticking. He took a breath. "I've been thinking a lot these past few weeks. About everything. About us. And I realized something. You were right. About all of it. Obviously. I took you for granted," he continued, ignoring her sarcasm. "I was so angry after the accident. Angry at myself, at the world, at my body for betraying me. And I took that anger out on you. Every day. Every cruel word. And you stayed anyway. You helped me. And I repaid you by destroying us." Daniela said nothing. Just waited to see where this was going. I don't expect you to forgive me, he said quietly. I don't deserve forgiveness. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I had. What I lost. And I'm sorry. Really genuinely sorry. Not because I got caught. Not because there are consequences. But because I hurt someone who only ever tried to help me. It was maybe the most honest thing he'd ever said to her. But it didn't change anything. Okay, she said simply. Okay. I hear you. I believe you're sorry. But it doesn't fix anything, Dongwoo. You can't apologize your way out of 4 years of cruelty. I know. But I want to try to be better. For Rato. For you. For myself. Be better then, Daniela said. Show up for your daughter. Pay your child support on time. Be professional at work. That's how you prove you've changed. Not with words. With actions. He nodded slowly. You're right. As usual. Your 30 minutes are up. He started toward the door then paused. For what it's worth. I did love you. Maybe not the way you deserved, but I loved you. Past tense noted, Daniela said. After he left, she locked the door and went to check on Lorato. Her daughter slept peacefully, tiny fists curled near her face. Perfect. Innocent. Untouched by all the adult drama swirling around her. Daniela made a promise right then. She'd never let Lorato grow up thinking she was worth less than she was. Never let anyone convince her daughter that love meant tolerating cruelty. She'd raise a girl who knew her value. Who demanded respect. Who understood that being strong didn't mean staying in situations that made you small. You're going to be amazing, she whispered. And I'm going to make sure you know it. The next few months passed in a blur of activity. Daniela officially became a co-owner of Jiang Import-Export, taking an active role in daily operations. She set up an office 3 doors down from Dongwoo's, close enough to stay involved but far enough to maintain boundaries. They developed a strange working relationship. Professional. Cordial. Sometimes even collaborative. He'd learned to respect her opinions, or at least he'd learned to fake it convincingly. And Daniela learned to separate business from personal emotions. The Kenya partnership flourished. Li Yong visited Seoul for a week and Daniela showed him around the city. They became friends, real friends. He met Lorato, brought her a stuffed elephant from Nairobi. Made Daniela laugh with stories about his own chaotic family. You're glowing, her mother commented during one of their video calls. Seoul suits you. I'm not glowing. I'm just functioning. You're thriving, baby girl. There's a difference. Maybe she was. Work energized her. Lorato amazed her every day. First smile, first laugh, first time sleeping through the night. Life was busy and complicated, but it was hers. That mattered. Dongwoo kept his promises. Showed up every Saturday for visitation. Never missed a payment. Even started taking parenting classes, which surprised everyone. He was awkward with Lorato at first, unsure how to hold her or what to do when she cried. But he tried. Kept trying. She likes being bounced, Daniela found herself saying one Saturday when he looked panicked at the baby screaming. Not too fast. Just gentle. He bounced Lorato carefully. She quieted, looked up at him with curious eyes. He smiled. A real smile, soft and wondering. She's beautiful, he said. Just like her mother. Daniela didn't respond to that. Just checked her watch. 2 more hours. Call me if you need anything. She used those 3 hours every Saturday to do things for herself. Get her nails done. Go to coffee shops and read. Walk through parks without a stroller. Remember who she was outside of being a mother. One Saturday she ran into Davina at a bookstore. They both froze. Neither spoke at first. Finally, Davina cleared her throat. You look good, she said quietly. Thanks. I heard about the company. Congratulations. Thanks. Another long silence. I'm seeing a therapist, Davina offered. Working through some things. Trying to understand why I did what I did. That's good for you. Is there any chance we could, eventually, maybe talk? Not now, I know it's too soon. But someday. Daniela considered this. Part of her wanted to say never, slam the door forever. But another part, the part that remembered being kids together, playing in their grandmother's yard, braiding each other's hair. That part hesitated. Maybe someday, she said finally. But not today. Not for a long time probably. Davina nodded, eyes wet. I understand. I'll wait. However long it takes. They separated, went their different ways through the bookstore. Daniela felt strange about the encounter. Not angry exactly, but not ready to forgive either. Somewhere in between. Growing. Back at the visitation center, Dongwoo was still playing with Lorato when she arrived. The supervisor, Mrs. Kim, gave Daniela a thumbs up. "He's doing well," she said quietly. "Really trying." "Good," Daniela said. And meant it. Whatever happened between them, Lorato deserved a father who cared. The company hit a rough patch in October. A major shipment got delayed in customs, costing them thousands. Clients were furious. Dongwoo wanted to blame the logistics team. Daniela dug deeper, found the real problem: paperwork errors from their new assistant. "We need better training," she told the board. "Not to fire people, but to prevent mistakes." "That costs money," Dongwoo argued. "So do mistakes," she countered. "What costs more? Training or lost contracts?" They implemented her suggestion. Mistakes decreased. Clients came back. The Singapore CEO they'd lost before even reached out about reconnecting. "You saved us," Mr. Nam said. Again. Daniela didn't see it that way. She was just doing her job. But it felt good to be valued. Appreciated. Seen as more than just someone's ex-wife. December arrived with cold winds and early darkness. Seoul dressed itself in lights and decorations. Daniela's first Christmas as a single mother approached with mixed feelings. Lorato was too young to understand, but Daniela wanted to make it special anyway. She bought a small tree, decorated it with her mother's help. Played carols in Setswana and English. Took hundreds of photos of Lorato in festive outfits. Dongwoo asked if he could spend Christmas morning with them. Not as a couple, he clarified quickly. Just as parents. For Lorato. Daniela almost said no. But then she thought about future Christmases, future birthdays. They'd have to navigate this eventually. Might as well start now. "Fine," she said. "But you're leaving by lunch." Christmas morning was surprisingly pleasant. Dongwoo brought gifts. Practical ones like clothes and diapers, not extravagant gestures. They sat on the floor with Lorato between them, watching her grab at wrapping paper and ignore the actual toys. "She's strong," Dongwoo observed. "Look how she holds her head up." "Gets it from her mother," Daniela said without thinking. He laughed. "Yes, she does." They made breakfast together. Awkward at first, but falling into a rhythm. Scrambled eggs, toast, coffee. Normal things. The kind of morning they'd never had when they were married. "I miss this," Dongwoo said quietly. "Not the marriage. I know that's gone. But this. Being around you. The family. You see her every week. It's not the same." Daniela understood what he meant, but that didn't change reality. "We can be co-parents, Dongwoo. Good ones, hopefully. But we can't be anything else. Because you don't love me anymore?" He thought about that. "I don't think I ever stopped loving who I thought you were. The man I married, the one who promised to build a life with me. But that man either never existed or he changed into someone I don't recognize. And I can't love a memory. I need something real." He nodded slowly. "That's fair." After he left, Daniela cleaned up the kitli, put Lorato down for a nap. Sat with her coffee and felt content. Not happy exactly, not yet. But content. At peace. Her phone rang. Lee from Kenya. "Merry Christmas," he said cheerfully. "How's the little one?" "Trying to eat wrapping paper." "You?" "Avoiding my mother's questions about when I'm getting married." The usual holiday stress. They talked for an hour, laughing about nothing and everything. When they hung up, Daniela realized she was smiling. Really smiling. Not forcing it or faking it, but genuinely happy. Progress. Small but real. The new year brought changes. Daniela hired a full-time nanny so she could work longer hours. Lorato started sleeping better. The company landed 3 major contracts. Everything was clicking into place. Dongwoo seemed to be changing too. He apologized to the team for his behavior during the Singapore dinner disaster. Started asking for Daniela's input before making decisions. Even took her suggestion to hire more women for senior positions. "You're different," she observed one day after a particularly productive meeting. "I'm trying to be," he said. "You were right about a lot of things. About me using anger as a weapon. About taking out my pain on others. I've been working with someone. A counselor." "Good." He meant it. Everyone should probably talk to someone. Have you? Yes, actually. Started last month. It helps. They stood there in the hallway, two people who'd broken each other learning to build something new from the pieces. Not a relationship. Not friendship exactly. But partnership. Respect. I'm glad you kept the company stake, Dongwoo said. We're better with you here. I know, Daniela said with a slight smile. He laughed. Never did lack confidence, did you? Someone had to have enough for both of us. Spring arrived. Cherry blossoms transformed Seoul into something magical. Daniela took Lorato to parks, watched her daughter's eyes go wide at the pink petals falling like snow. 9 months old now. Growing fast. Saying mama and dada, and laughing at everything. She has your determination, Dongwoo said during one of their Saturday visits. Lorato was refusing to give up on stacking blocks that kept falling. Same stubborn expression. She'll need it in this world. Because the world is hard? Because being strong is better than being weak. They'd fallen into easier conversations lately. Still careful, still boundaried, but warmer. Like two countries that had been at war were now navigating a cautious peace. Lee visited again in April, this time bringing his sister who was studying international business. Daniela showed them both around the office, introduced them to the team. Dongwoo was professional, but Daniela noticed him watching Lee carefully. Assessing. He seems nice, Dongwoo commented after they left. He is nice. Is there something happening there? Daniela raised an eyebrow. That's absolutely none of your business. I know. Sorry. I want you to be happy. I am happy, she said. With or without a man in my life. And she was. Genuinely happy. Not the desperate, clinging happiness that depended on someone else's mood. But solid, internal contentment. She'd built a life she was proud of. A career. A daughter. Independence. The company's annual gala happened in May. Daniela debated skipping it, but Mrs. Yang convinced her to attend. Show them you belong, she'd said. Show them you're not going anywhere. So Daniela bought a stunning dress. Deep blue, elegant, powerful. Arranged for the nanny to stay late with Lorato. Did her makeup carefully. Walked into that ballroom with her head high. People stared. Whispered. She ignored them. Found Mr. Nam and his wife. Spent time talking to clients. Networking with other business owners. Lee had flown in for the event and stuck by her side, making her laugh. Dongwoo arrived with no date. His mother was with him. A woman Daniela had never particularly liked, but who at least had been civil during the divorce. Mrs. Jang spotted Daniela and came over. You look beautiful, she said. Motherhood suits you. Thank you. I owe you an apology, the older woman continued. I should have seen what my son was doing. Should have protected you. I'm sorry. Daniela hadn't expected that. Wasn't sure how to respond. Thank you for saying that. How is Lorato? They talked about the baby, the universal safe subject. Mrs. Jang asked to visit sometime. Daniela agreed, surprising herself. Maybe grudges were too heavy to carry forever. Dongwoo approached later, looking uncertain. Dance with me, he asked. Why? Because everyone's watching and I want to show them we can be adults. Co-parents who don't hate each other. It made sense. She accepted his hand, let him lead her onto the dance floor. They moved stiffly at first, aware of every eye tracking their movement. Relax, he murmured. I'm not going to bite you. I know. This is weird. Tell me about it. But gradually the weirdness faded. They found a rhythm. Talked about normal things. Lorato's development, the Singapore deal, whether the food was as bad as last year's gala. You're glowing, he said. Like really glowing. Is it Lee? It's me, she corrected. I'm happy because I chose to be happy. Not because of any man. I'm glad, he said quietly. You deserve happiness. After everything I put you through, you deserve every good thing. The song ended. They separated. Daniela returned to Lee's side and Dongwoo disappeared into the crowd. He's still in love with you, Lee observed. Probably. But that's his problem to solve, not mine. And if he asks you back? Daniela looked at her friend, kind, funny, supportive Lee who'd never once made her feel small. I'd say no. Because I learned something important this year. Love isn't enough. Not without respect. Not without partnership. Not without effort every single day to choose each other. That's very wise. That's very hard-earned, she corrected. They laughed. The night continued. Daniela networked, danced, celebrated the company's success. Her success. She'd helped build this. Even when Dongwoo had tried to erase her contributions, the work spoke for itself. Around midnight she slipped outside for air. The terrace was empty, quiet. Souls spread out below like a jewel box. Beautiful, isn't it? Dongwoo's voice behind her. She didn't jump. Just nodded. Always. He joined her at the railing, kept a respectful distance. I've been thinking about something you said once. About how I heard what I wanted to hear. Okay. The doctors never said you were infertile. They said unlikely. But I heard impossible because that's what I wanted to believe. Because if you were the problem, I didn't have to examine my own failures. Daniela said nothing. Let him talk. I failed you in every way that mattered, he continued. As a husband. As a partner. As a man. And when you stayed anyway, I thought that meant I could keep failing. That you'd always be there no matter what I did. And then you weren't. And I realized too late what I'd lost. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to hear it. And because I want you to know that I understand now. What I did. Why you left. Why you can't come back. I appreciate that, Daniela said carefully. But understanding doesn't fix anything. I know. But maybe understanding is enough. Maybe we can build something better than what we had. Not a marriage. But a partnership. For Lorato. We already have that, she pointed out. I mean more than just co-parenting. I mean respecting each other. Supporting each other. Being actual partners in the company and in raising our daughter. No games. No manipulation. Just honesty. Daniela turned to look at him fully. Studied his face in the dim light. He seemed different. Older maybe. Or just more real. I can try that, she said slowly. But one mistake, Dongwoo. One step backward, one cruel word, one betrayal, and I'm done. Not just with any idea of us getting back together, but with trying to be civil. You'll be a distant father who sees his daughter every other weekend and that's it. I understand. Do you? Because I'm not bluffing. I will protect myself and Lorato first, always. Your feelings come dead last. As they should, he said quietly. I haven't earned anything else. They stood there together, two people who'd loved and hurt and nearly destroyed each other, trying to figure out what came next. The answer wasn't reconciliation. Wasn't romance. But maybe it was something better. Maybe it was respect. Time passed. Weeks into months. Dongwoo kept his promises, surprising everyone including himself probably. Showed up consistently. Worked on his temper. Asked before assuming. Slowly, carefully they built something that resembled trust. Lorato turned 1 in August. They threw a joint party. Daniela's apartment was too small so they used Dongwoo's house. Both families came. Lee flew in with gifts. Even Davina appeared, staying carefully in the background, respecting boundaries. This is nice, Mrs. Zhang said, watching Lorato demolish her cake. A real family gathering. We're not a family, Daniela corrected gently. We're two families learning to coexist. Isn't that what all families are? Maybe. Probably. Dongwoo caught her eye across the room, smiled. Not a romantic smile. Not a possessive one. His warm. Grateful. She smiled back. Later, after most guests had left, they stood in the backyard watching Lorato toddle around on unsteady legs. Lee was showing her how to blow bubbles, laughing when she tried to eat them instead. He's good with her, Dongwoo observed. He's good with everyone. Are you too? Still none of your business. Fair enough. But there was no heat in the exchange. No jealousy. Just two people who'd moved past that kind of possessiveness. Thank you, Dongwoo said suddenly. For what? For not giving up on the idea that I could change. A lot of people would have written me off completely. You gave me a chance to be better. I gave you a chance to be a father, Daniela corrected. That's different from giving you a chance with me. I know. But still. Thank you. Lorato chose that moment to fall on her bottom, look up surprised, then laugh. Both parents rushed over, but she was fine. Just startled. They helped her up, sent her back toward Lee and the bubbles. She's fearless, Dongwoo said with pride. Gets it from her mother. Daniela repeated what she'd said before. Yes, she does. The party wound down. People left with full bellies and tired smiles. Daniela gathered Lorato's things, preparing to head home. You could stay, Dongwoo offered. There's plenty of room. Save yourself the drive. That's not appropriate. I meant in the guest room. Separate spaces. I'm not trying anything, Daniela. I promise. She considered it. Was exhausted. Lorato was already falling asleep. Fine, she agreed. But separate. And this doesn't become a habit. Understood. She settled Lorato in one of the guest rooms, the one she used to stay in when they were married and fought. It felt strange being back in this house, walking these halls. But also kind of okay. Memories didn't hurt as much as they used to. Morning came bright and early, announced by Lorato's babbling. Daniela changed her, went downstairs to find Dongwoo already making breakfast. Coffee, he offered. Please. They ate together, comfortable silence. Lorato in her high chair making a mess of eggs. Normal domestic morning, except they weren't together. Weren't in love. Were just surviving parenthood side by side. I could get used to this, Dongwoo said. Don't, Daniela warned. This is a one-time thing. But she was smiling when she said it. And he smiled back. And maybe that was enough. Maybe they'd never get back together, never be that couple again. But they'd found something else. Something that worked. Months turned into years. Lorato grew. Started preschool. Daniela's stake in the company became permanent, official. She was named COO, officially Dongwoo's equal in business if not in ownership percentage. They worked well together. Complemented each other's strengths. Built something neither could have managed alone. Lee and Daniela dated casually for a while before deciding they were better as friends. No drama. No heartbreak. Just mutual recognition that chemistry wasn't quite there. Davina eventually moved away, sent yearly cards that Daniela sometimes opened. Forgiveness was still years away, maybe decades. But the sharp edge of betrayal had dulled into something more manageable. He dated other people eventually. Nothing serious. He'd show up to custody exchanges with lipstick on his collar sometimes. Daniela didn't care. His life was his own. Do you ever think about us? He asked one day. Lorato was 3 now, playing in the yawn while they watched from a bench. Sometimes, Daniela admitted. Usually when something reminds me of the good parts. Before everything fell apart. Do you regret marrying me? She thought about that carefully. I regret how it ended. I regret the pain. But I don't regret Lorato. And I don't regret learning who I am. So no. I don't regret it completely. That's generous of you. It's honest, she corrected. They sat in comfortable silence, watching their daughter play. 2 people who'd tried to build forever and ended up with something different. Something maybe better. Co-parents. Business partners. Careful friends. Lorato ran over, demanding they watch her go down the slide. They both jumped up, followed her around the playground. Took turns catching her at the bottom, pushing her on swings, being present. This was what love looked like now. Not romance. Not passion. But commitment. Showing up. Choosing to be better every single day. But peace never lasts forever. It was a Tuesday morning when everything shifted. Daniela was in her office reviewing quarterly reports when Mr. Nam burst through the door, his face pale and sweaty. We have a problem, he said, closing the door behind him. A big problem. What kind of problem? Do you remember Yang Jae-sun? From 5 years ago. The name triggered something cold in Daniela's memory. Yang Jae-sun had been one of Dongwoo's original business partners, back before the accident. They'd had a falling out over money. Yang had wanted to expand into illegal imports and Dongwoo had refused. The partnership had dissolved messily, threats had been made but nothing had come of it. He's back, Mr. Nam continued. And he's claiming that Dongwoo stole clients from him. Trade secrets. He's filed lawsuits and there's something else. What else? He's been asking questions about Lorato. About you. About where you live. Daniela's blood went cold. What kind of questions? What school she goes to? What time you drop her off? My cousin works at his office and she called to warn me. Yang is planning something, Daniela. Something bad. She was already grabbing her phone, dialing the preschool. Her hands shook slightly but her voice stayed steady. This is Lorato Zhang's mother. I need you to put her in lockdown immediately. No one picks her up except me or her father. No one else. Not grandparents, not aunts, and no one. The teacher on the other end sounded confused but agreed. Daniela hung up, called Dongwoo next. We have a situation, she said when he answered. Young Jae-sun is back and he's making threats. Silence. Then, I'm on my way to your office. He arrived 10 minutes later, probably broke every traffic law getting there. His face was grim, determined. Tell me everything. Mr. Nam repeated what he'd told Daniela. Dongwoo listened, his jaw clenching tighter with each word. He's trying to hurt me through you, Dongwoo said finally. Through Larato. This is about revenge. This is about protecting our daughter, Daniela corrected. I don't care what it's about for him. What do we do? They spent the next hour making calls. Hired private security. Alerted the police, though the officers said they couldn't do much without direct threats. Changed pickup arrangements at preschool. Daniela moved temporarily into Dongwoo's house, the one with better security systems and gates. This is exactly what he wants, she said that evening, watching Larato play with blocks, oblivious to the danger circling their family. He wants us scared. Disrupted. Then we don't give him the satisfaction, Dongwoo said. But his voice was tight with worry. I'll handle Park. You focus on keeping Larato safe. We both focus on Larato, Daniela corrected firmly. And we both handle this. Together. The next morning a package arrived at the office. No return address. Security opened it carefully and found photos inside. Pictures of Larato at the playground, at preschool, walking with Daniela through the market. Someone had been following them for weeks. Daniela felt sick. He's been watching us this whole time. This ends now, Dongwoo said, his voice deadly quiet. I'm going to talk to him. No, you're not. That's exactly what he wants. To provoke you into doing something stupid. Then what do we do? Just wait for him to make his move. Daniela thought fast, her mind racing through options. Then something clicked. We beat him at his own game. He filed lawsuits claiming you stole clients, right? What if we prove he's been involved in illegal activities this whole time? What if we give the authorities something real to investigate? Dongwoo looked skeptical. We don't have proof of anything. Maybe we don't. But maybe someone else does. She pulled out her phone, scrolled through contacts. Lee's company works all over East Africa. They have connections everywhere. If Yang has been doing illegal imports like he wanted to 5 years ago, someone knows about it. She called Lee, explained the situation quickly. He listened without interrupting. Give me 24 hours, he said. I know people who know things. If Yang has been moving illegal goods, I'll find evidence. They waited. The longest 24 hours of Daniela's life. She barely slept, kept checking on Larato every hour. Dongwoo paced the house like a caged animal, making phone calls, arranging more security. I won't let him hurt our family, he said at one point. Whatever it takes. No violence, Daniela warned. We do this the right way. People. Smart. Since when did you become so patient? Since I realized that protecting Larato means keeping both her parents out of jail. Lee called back exactly 24 hours later. I found something. Park's been smuggling counterfeit electronics through a shell company in Tanzania. I've got documentation, shipping manifests, everything. I'm sending it to you now. The files came through, damning evidence of years of illegal activity. Daniela forwarded everything to their lawyers, who contacted the appropriate authorities immediately. Within 48 hours, Yang Jae-sun was arrested. The news reported it as a major smuggling bust. His assets were frozen pending investigation. His threats against Jang import-export evaporated like morning fog. Daniela stood at the window of Dongwoo's house, watching Larato play in the secured backyard. The danger had passed, but the memory of it lingered sharp and clear. Dongwoo came to stand beside her. We made a good team. We always did, she admitted. When we weren't too busy destroying each other. He wanted to tear us apart. Instead he reminded us why we work better together. Don't read too much into this, Daniela warned, but without heat. We protected our daughter. That's what parents do. Still, thank you for thinking clearly when I was ready to do something stupid. That's what CEOs do, she said with a slight smile. Keep the CEO from making terrible decisions. They stood there together, watching their daughter laugh and play, safe and protected and loved. The threat had passed. They'd faced it down together, proven that whatever else had broken between them, their commitment to Lorato remained unshakable. Thank you so much for following Daniela's journey from heartbreak to healing. If you loved this story of strength, courage, and finding yourself again after betrayal, please hit that like button and subscribe for more emotional, powerful stories. Drop a comment telling me what you thought and share this with someone who needs to hear that they can survive anything life throws at them. You're stronger than you know, and tomorrow is always a new chance to start over.